Well, thank you for joining us for what is probably the best session that you're going to have during this conference. Congratulations. Excellent choice. So my name is Megan Steckly. I'm the CEO for Comp-U-Dopt. We're a national nonprofit that does a full suite of digital equity solutions, from device access, digital skills, technology-centered enrichment education, and connectivity. But I'm actually not here to talk about myself today, hard as that is to believe, for those of you that know me. But to help moderate this panel of discussion around completing the digital equity triangle, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means and what the definitions are in that space. Before we do introduce these fabulous people to my left here, though, I just kind of want to get a sense of who's in the room. So if you're a refurbisher or related to refurbishment, can you raise your hand for me?
When you're not related, we sell refurbished computers.
Sure, raise your hand. Sound totally counts.
We license refurbishment.
Great. Sure, that counts too. Who is more on like the connectivity space, broadbandy? Okay, there's a couple. And who comes from maybe like public sector, government libraries? Wow. Welcome. All right. All right. Well, we're really excited to have everybody here today, and that will help us sort of shape the discussion. We do have some prepared questions to kind of get the conversation going, but we really do want this to be conversational. So I think as assuming my panelists are okay with this, if you do have a question, please feel free to go and stand at the mic, and I will work you in as soon as it feels comfortable to do that, so that you're asking at a relevant time, and we sort of move the discussion forward that way. You guys good with that? Great. Okay, so without further ado, sitting immediately next to me here, this is Michael, and he comes from Human IT. He's the Senior Vice President of Policy and Advocacy. He has 2 decades of leadership roles in the political and nonprofit sectors, and while he has experience as an executive director, a campaign manager, as well as a political consultant, he serves Human IT by pursuing the digital inclusion policies at local, state, and federal levels. And before joining Human IT, he was with the Camden Institute as the executive director and led that organization through significant periods of growth. Welcome to Michael. Sitting right next to him is Jeff. Jeff Hanson is the founder and executive director for Digital Bridge, which is based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Jeff earned his Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering and his Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from Milwaukee School of Engineering and the University of Applied Sciences in Lübeck, Germany, a place I have not been. Sounds great, though. While studying, he became involved in the volunteer groups and established a number of labs in developing nations with computers. And since 2009, he has set up over 20 labs in Central Africa and Central America. He brought those skills and his solution back to the United States, to his home community, and he founded Digital Bridge. And in the past 10 years, they've also seen enormous amounts of growth. And he's ensuring that donating tech is as simple as donating clothes or food. He's a member of the Advisory Council for the Alliance of Technology Reuse and Refurbishment. And in fact, everybody up here, including myself, are also all members of that. So welcome to Jeff. Down there at the end, last but very far from least, Cherie Pierre is the president of Pierre & Associates, an internationally based consulting firm that builds sustainability in small business, nonprofits, and startups. Her work in implementing sustainable solutions has supported her incredible success as CEO of Computers to Kids for the past 16 years. She is probably one of the most decorated people that I have had the recent pleasure of introducing. She's the 2021 CEO of the Year for Nonprofit Small winner, 2021 Women of Influence in Technology honoree, San Diego 500's most influential people in San Diego, and was recognized as Woman of Influence for the 50 over 50. So welcome and congratulations on lots of success. So to kick us off a little bit, I'm going to ask all three of you to just introduce your organizations, give us a sense, a little bit of the scope and the scale of the work that you guys currently do. So, Michael, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about Human IT.
Sure. Human IT was founded approximately 10 years ago in Long Beach. Let me get a little closer to this. In Long Beach, California, we are a nationwide digital inclusion nonprofit. Started as a nonprofit computer refurbisher, but I think I can speak for everybody here that even though we're all nonprofit computer refurbishers, we're really digital inclusion practitioners, right? We offer not just devices, but connectivity, digital literacy training, tech support, the full range of digital inclusion services. In terms of scale, like I said, we do offer our programs across the country, low-cost devices, free devices, connectivity through hotspots, tech support for folks who need computer access who get a device. And we have significant operations in Detroit, Michigan, and we're probably going to also expand off to the East Coast to have a physical presence. In terms of scale, we do anywhere from 20 to 30,000 devices a year, more if needed. Digital literacy is something else we're growing as needed, obviously, but we're looking very much at just kind of packaging everything we do as one service, essentially, right? That's what we're doing. It's a digital navigation service. What do you need? If you need this, we can offer. If you need that, we can offer it. So yeah, and let's I'll get in more details, but I don't want to suck up any more oxygen.
All right, go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. Yeah, so Digital Bridge, where we're based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, also a nonprofit computer refurbisher, but like Michael said, we're providing training and helping sign people up for internet. As she mentioned, we started as a volunteer org doing computer labs in developing countries, and we shifted 5 years ago was my first NDIA, and we went from a volunteer org to a staff of 10 as of this year. So a lot of that has to do with COVID and also meeting a lot of the great people here. So that's awesome. And we're up, I think we're planning on distributing about 10,000 devices this year. So, yeah.
So Computers to Kids is located in San Diego. We focus primarily on the refurbishment of computers and do up to 35,000 computers a year. Since COVID, March 16th of 2020, we've distributed 54,000 computers during that time. We partner with local internet, Cox Communication. Prior to COVID, we were doing distributions out in the community, and Cox was there with us signing up individuals for their Connect to Compete program. We also offer free technical support. We ship our computers all over the United States, and if there's technical support across the nation, we'll put a replacement system in a box, ship it to them, and swap it out with the label and get theirs back. We do have a MOU with our San Diego Public Library, so we do some digital literacy, but Computers to Kids felt a long time ago that there were some really great training partners in San Diego, and instead of competing, we decided to collaborate together. So we allow those partners to really excel in the digital literacy while we are extremely efficient in the refurbishing process.
Yeah, great. Thank you, guys. So there's 2 points within that I kind of want to come back with. All of you guys spoke a little bit about the expansive growth and what's happened over the last couple of years. And I know for those of us in the room, we've also had an incredible 24 months. However, you're choosing to wake up and see that today, right? I am earning my vacation personally whenever we get to take that. So I just want to dig into that a little bit further. So I know there's been some really great wins, and we'll get back a little bit later in this conversation to what some of the statistics are around what your growth has looked like over those past 2 years. But for right now, what are the current most pressing pain points and challenges that you're seeing as we continue to go forward?
I'm going to start.
Yeah.
It is, and it sounds odd, but it is an incredible landscape of opportunity out there, right? There's more federal funding than anybody's ever seen, and Angela alluded to it yesterday, obviously, with what's coming down from the federal government that's being then dispersed through the state government. So it's a very target-rich environment. Which makes it difficult because you don't know exactly what to focus on, right? Prioritization, I think, is kind of the key word here. It's what are we really good at that we can help a community for impact and kind of marry those two things together. So it's making sure that we're not necessarily going outside our lanes, but we know what we're really really have specialized knowledge in and experience. So we want to marry that with the opportunities we see out there. And there's so many, it's very hard to keep track of everything that's going on.
Yeah, so are you being asked to do things you wouldn't normally do?
Every day.
Every day, yeah. And so how is that? How about everybody here? Is that something that over the past couple of years now you're being asked more and more to do things that are just a little bit beyond your scope? Yeah? A little show of hands there for me? Yeah, good on you. Yeah, so how do you handle that? How do you respond to those?
You know, again, it's so easy in this sort of environment to have mission creep, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where you can kind of get in trouble. And Cherie alluded to it, like you didn't want to do digital literacy training because there are folks on the ground who are great at that. So why reinvent the wheel? So we're very much in kind of that space, making sure that what we offer is the best that we can offer, unique to us, to human IT, and trying not to necessarily step on anybody's toes, but collaborate with who's on the ground partner-wise, and find those opportunities. Again, they're everywhere right now. It's an incredible period, and I've been doing this for 10-some years. I've never seen anything, for the last decade. I was out there, banging the pot saying, hey, digital inclusion, digital divide, do something about it.
Yeah.
And, kind of poo-pooed off to the side. Yeah, sure, that's important. After we get to utilities and roads, we'll get to you guys.
Yeah.
And now it's, now it's full attention on this. So capitalize while you can, because it's not going to be like this in 3, 4, 5 years. That's going to disappear.
Right, yeah. So Cherie, you mentioned that you partner already with the San Diego Library and some other organizations, since we have a lot of public sector folks here today. Can you talk about what is that process for getting into, I was going to say bed, but good partnerships, particularly with, public and nonprofit agencies working together, and what are kind of some of the best practices? We've learned this, go into it with these tools. Yeah,
so I have to say the beginning, especially for those organizations that may be smaller, getting into partnerships, you have to be patient, especially when you're dealing with government, because you've got the district attorney's office and a lot of other hoops that you have to jump through. So be a little bit patient in the time that it's going to take to process. But I think for us, we really approached it that every partnership we go into, it's not always going to be 50-50. There are going to be times that I, as a nonprofit, are going to have to give more than what I'm getting back. And there is a lot of hesitation in San Diego for nonprofits to do that. It should be all one way towards us. And I think we created a reputation in San Diego about, hey, it doesn't matter if I get anything out of it right now, it will circle back. I think it's always good to have that MOU created and have that in your pocket so that it can be customized easily for whatever partner you're going through. And then make sure that, again, if you're asked to do something, as Michael said, we refuse to chase money. We refuse to create programs in order to get funding. Instead, we will rather pass on a relationship and direct them to someone else if that organization is a stronger fit. And ultimately, that has caused a lot of these partners to come back to us when it comes to devices and tech support and internet connections. They've come back to us because of that.
Yeah, I love that. I think that the holistic commitment of community members, community organizations, and public sector entities really focusing on let's solve this and let's work on it together, and it doesn't need to be a money grab. And so that is a nice segue over into, okay, one of the biggest challenges of partnerships in the nonprofit landscape overall is always, yeah, but what about funding, right? Who's paying for this, right? And who's going to be the lead agency around it? So I'll open this up to any three of you, right? Have you had any experiences where there's been a partnership and it looks like it's going to be really great, but there's a little bit of troubled water there in terms of drawing some territory lines in the sand, and Jeff, I can see you've got somebody in mind.
No specific examples, but just as
They can remain nameless.
as we mentioned before, there's something going from having to do less advocacy to now everyone's excited about this topic, what we're doing. But there's definitely an education piece there then, because it was lots of ideas the first couple months of COVID from people that came out of nowhere and trying to stay relevant. So then kind of watching, we have to educate these partners on like what's really going to work, and it just sort of took some time to make those happen. But back to your question was,
yeah, have you had any partnerships where there's been sort of lines in the sand or territory or boundary issues where you're needing to really sit down and clarify, like, this is
Yeah.
who's funding what.
Yeah, I think that's a continuous, we've been continuously growing those partners
Yeah.
over the last couple of years, so.
Yeah. How about you, Michael? Do you have some best practice tips?
Yeah, clear scope of work agreements that lay out what everybody needs to do and where the funding is split. And nobody wants to talk funding, right? You're like, oh, this is great, warm and fuzzy, everybody sits down at the table, let's do something good for the community. Yeah, how much is it gonna cost?
Yeah.
How much is it gonna cost? Who's getting what? Who's responsible for fundraising or getting the funding partnership allocation? Like, making sure all of that is written down in black and white. You have to do that. You don't do that, you're already set up for trouble. I mean, it's just that simple. And yeah, it's constant education about, well, yes, we're going to do this, but it's going to cost this much. There is always a cost associated with everything we do, period. And not being open or transparent about that cost is just a recipe for disaster. You have to say, these services we offer may be free to the clientele or greatly reduced to the clientele we serve, but that's not how it works, right? We all have budgets, we all have operating revenues, we have expenses that we have to meet. So if that's not clear from the get-go, you're not going to have a great time.
Yeah. Are any of you feeling a sense of urgency or increased sense of urgency around needing to find funding or be more responsive than maybe you have capacity for at the moment through this process?
Yes, for Computers to Kids, I mean, we're an extremely efficient nonprofit, which means I, as a CEO, am also the CFO and the fundraiser. And, to do that, I've worn a lot of hats. And so I've recognized that there are opportunities that I'm missing out on, and have had the pleasure of trying to convince a board of directors that a chief philanthropy officer was needed. Thank God I've got it. But on the flip side of that, it's trying to hire in today's market because no one wants to work, and it's really challenging to get people to commit. But, to circle around to partnerships with funding, I've had positive experiences and I've had negative experiences. And yes, you need to tell them what your expectations are and what your financial obligations are for part of that relationship. But there will come a time where you will get in a partner with a joint collaboration on a grant, and you will be taken advantage of because that other entity is going to want all the money. You have to be okay to say, I'm done. I'm backing off, I'm taking a loss. I don't want any of the money, I just want to stop working. Because otherwise you'll end up hitting your head against the wall trying to produce more and more. But there's other relationships where, we wanted to go after some of the EBV funding at the beginning, and I had the opportunity to partner with an organization that already had the storefront set up, and it was under their name. I was okay with that because I was able to produce the computers and get them out, and I didn't have to have, top billing. And I think you need to decide when you create those partnerships, do you need to have your name on everything? Or is it okay just to have an opportunity to provide services that you normally wouldn't be able to do?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. Yeah. So if we're putting ourselves in the seats of people that are working in libraries, for example, and potentially interested in partnering with organizations like ours that provide devices, since this is about device access, what does that look like? What do they need to be thinking about? What questions do they need to be asking, to help shape those conversations so they're going into partnerships with eyes wide open?
I know with our relationship, with our partnership at the library, we had to be able to say, okay, did you want us training in the library? We do provide training on the fourth Saturday of every month. But also, do you need materials? So we offered the library creating the posters. We created all the flyers. We created the electronic material that was going out and provide that for them. And then also be able to sit down with the branch managers and say, okay, this is the material that we're going to offer to everybody in the library system in our county. Now, what are some of the questions that you're getting from the people that are coming up to you? What are some of the concerns that you have? And then address it on an ongoing basis to make sure that the librarians have the tools that they need to be able to convey that information, and know that if they do have an issue with a client, they can call. There's a cell number to somebody immediately, whatever time of day, where they can call and get their answers. I think that's really important.
I'd say working from the get-go in terms of what is the end user target population, what do you want them to get out of this particular device, talking specs is always fun, but do you really need a 10th gen i7 brand new laptop that's running a fortune? What's your budget? What specs and budget go hand in hand, obviously. Do you need new? Do you need refurbished? What is your tech support going to look like? Like you mentioned, that's going to be the biggest piece. Libraries are not set up for that, right? I mean, sure, maybe they can walk somebody through a software issue, whatnot, but what are you going to do when that computer comes back? It's got a glitch, and you got to figure it out. It's a hardware issue. How do where are you putting all these computers? It really is something that, even though libraries are really traditionally good at lending and doing that, it's an IT lift. It's a huge IT lift. And the bigger the library system, the bigger the scale. And a lot of these programs right now are essentially long-term lending of these laptops. And that's something that's kind of new and interesting and provides its own set of challenges.
Yeah, that's definitely different than gifting a computer to someone that they get to keep.
Yeah.
That's a very different scenario.
Yeah, I think we'll come back and talk a little bit about how your organizations all handle deployment in a second here, but we'll go to the gentleman for a question.
Hi, so Richard Jones, I'm NYPL with our Tech Connect department. Our team does tech training from everything from basic computer skills to advanced coding and native app development within the library space. And so I was very interested in both of your responses to the last question, and I was kind of curious as to if a library is coming to speak with you or to partner with you, and you kind of set up some of your expectations, but if they are set up to have that technical support long term, what are some ideal types of programs that would interest you in working with the library?
Who wants to take it?
Can you repeat the question really quickly? I'm sorry, there's some sort of buzzing noise.
Sorry.
Okay.
If a library does have longer-term technical support, kind of like our team does, with the ability to kind of handle glitches and that type of IT level, but also provide technical training, what type of programs are ideal for partnerships for your organizations? What would you like to see long-term in terms of community outreach and community programming within a library?
If you guys don't take that, I'll take it.
Well,
Go
why
ahead.
don't you?
You're on the panel too.
Yes.
So our organization, we really believe there's actually, this topic is about a triangle, but we kind of believe there's a square, right? There's a fourth leg there, and it's okay, great. We've gotten them tools, we've gotten them connected, right? They know how to use basic skills. We've got tech support floating around over there, and the next step is really true economic mobility and how technology literacy and skill building applies towards connecting people to workforce, right? And to really getting it into economic mobility and, how beyond basic skills on the computer and beyond, how to upload a resume and do banking, but, how are we getting kids introduced to technology and understanding how, designing an augmented reality is the future of architecture and engineering and retail, right? And how do we get them excited about that and see themselves as confident young learners, and particularly for libraries that are within neighborhoods that are economically disadvantaged and historically marginalized and under-resourced, right? These are programs that are not available to them. And, while 90% of tech jobs in 2021 required technology literacy skills, only 35% of U.S. high schools teach computer science at all. Right. And if we're going to get kids into those programs and get them interested and encourage them to have student voice and be asking their schools to really be teaching and training them with these skills, we have to tell them that these are things that are out there and available for them. And I think libraries are the perfect venue for being able to help, resource these kids, because computers and literacy training is the modern day library card. Right. It is what books were when we were growing up. Okay, so I'm not really a panelist, but
Totally a panelist.
anybody else want to weigh in on that? That was a great question, by the way. Thank
Good
you.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what Megan said. But, at the end of the day, the computer is just a tool, right, for an opportunity. So whatever opportunity that somebody wants to use that tool for, whether it's workforce development, upskilling, or just reaching out to family, I mean, libraries are the forefront of that, right? And in my home state of North Carolina, we used to work with a lot of libraries there, and they're literally frontline teaching people how to use computers without a budget for it. It's not like it's a line item that's written in the budget says, yeah, you're going to do digital literacy for 25 hours a week to people who are in the community, but that is a need, and guess what? Libraries just step up and do it. So we can provide support when it comes to those sort of programs, right? so that libraries aren't reinventing the wheel, aren't having to design programs from the ground up, already have something that's prepackaged or can be adapted pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Brian McGurk with Multnomah County Library. I've run programs with local refurbisher Free Geek, and I'm moving on to a job with a statewide focus. And I'm kind of wondering how, I heard San Diego and Detroit and some large cities, I'm kind of wondering how refurbishers sort of extend their reach into rural communities and build programs out there and successes, challenges, and things like that.
I can answer that. So we are in the process of getting ready to release a mobile app for Android and Apple that will allow anyone in these rural areas to download an app, request a computer, and be able to request tech support replacements for specifically that area. We are often going out into the rural areas, like Mountain Empire in San Diego County is still on dial-up, you know. And we go out there, and I think one of the ways that we approach it is we ask that community, what is it you need, right? What do we need to, what is your flat side, what is your resources allowing? And then we customize our response to them. In the case of that location, we're shipping the system, we're having somebody come out and help set up the computer labs for them. We're also assigning an individual for a 24-hour hotline so that if there's any need in that neighborhood that they can call. But it's really going out and just saying this is an available resource and how can we help you. And we do advertising in remote areas too. So I have a certain amount of budget that I put in where we've looked at the nation map and said, okay, which are the ones that have the greatest need and the least resources around there, and that's where we target our advertising so that they know we're available.
Are either of you doing other kind of rural work in particular?
I think the best way we tend to find those communities is working with our nonprofit partners, and then that nonprofit partner will lead us to other communities in our area. So we're really starting in Milwaukee, and then we're using our partners to figure out where that need is.
Yeah. Yeah, my organization has also done this. We have rural regional locations in West Texas and the Eagleford area, as well as rural regional Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. And we've taken a slightly different approach where we've actually put staff on the ground there, right? We hire locally. We do pop-up distribution events, right, where I always think it feels like the circus is coming to town. And we just, we drive a big truck, we drop 25 computers here and 25 computers the next, and it's a little string of pearls sort of situation. And then that builds some good community goodwill. You have to find a community champion, or 3 preferably. And honestly, like for Monahans, which is, I don't know, population 400 or something, we literally set up at the bar, which is the name of the bar, and it's a trailer that has some folding tables out the front, and we sat there and signed people up, right, and bought them a drink and got to know them a little bit better, and then they introduced us to all their friends, right, and that was really critical to having longevity and success. Now we're in our 3rd year of programming in those communities. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Zeki Berzinji. I work for the Aspen Institute, and we just launched a new program that's taking a comprehensive look at the intersection of youth and technology. And we've divided it up into several tracks, but one of the main tracks is inclusion. One of the questions that's come up in some of our initial research and conversations is this idea of how do restrictions placed on publicly provided devices potentially increase digital equity gaps? The idea being basically for poor students, if they're getting provided a device through school, but it's restricted only for education purposes, they don't have the same access to the digital world that rich kids with their own devices do. We've had this conversation, and often, private industry will say, look, well, we're actually forced to put those restrictions on by policy. Policy folks say, well, this is how the devices come. But we just wanted to, because obviously we're moving into more and more of a remote learning environment, there's more and more publicly provided devices to kids. Is this something that we should look out for, and how do you mitigate those issues?
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
That's the best question
That's
ever.
such a
Yeah.
Yes, it's, look, I'll speak almost on a personal level. I despise putting restrictions on computers, right? It's why would we do that? That is an absolutely inequality that just keeps broadening, because, yeah, why would kid Y get a computer that has no restrictions, but kid Z all of a sudden, sorry, you can't look at those sites, can't use this. God forbid you Netflix. Oh, no, that's not good. Yeah, no computer should go out there with any sort of restrictions. Except for SIPA compliant, which, yeah, I know, and that's a policy issue.
Michael, you know what's going on with me.
SIPA compliant.
It's a lovely point of view, but when the federal government requires, I think with DC, we're doing a 10,000 device distribution. When the feds tell you you've got to do it, I would love to have the choice, but we don't have the choice. So
Yeah, we don't have the
it's
choice.
a policy issue that we all need to talk about, but sometimes you have to be in compliance, and then you have to find models in order to do that.
Sure, I agree. I think to your comment, right, it's about paying attention to, yes, that is absolutely something you need to pay attention to, right? And I'll let you go ahead and comment, Jeff.
I think it's different when like, our school districts sending out Chromebooks right when COVID started
Yeah.
to get everyone to get online to learn. They can only go to Milwaukee Public Schools websites. They can only do all these things because it's their Chromebook, and there are Chromebooks, they're only able to use certain
Yeah.
apps. You know, so people thought the digital divide was solved a month into COVID because we got the Chromebooks out to everybody, right?
Right, yeah.
But we're still on calls with the schools. We're going to distribute laptops. We're going to use the schools to distribute them, but it's not the schools. You know, we have to make it clear it's not the school's device. We're just doing distribution at the school.
Exactly.
Like, and so the first thing from one of the IT people was like, what if they're going to go on there and do crime and stuff? And it's like, well, everyone has equal access to do that crime, right? It's not any different than, well, you know, it's a tool, it's a utility. So what if you're using your electricity to do whatever? It's just a
Right.
utility. You can do whatever you want with it. You have equal access. You can watch Netflix. You can go on Facebook. That's up to you. It's their device. So I think the difference is if it's a person's device, it's their device. We don't really have any liabilities from selling them the device or distributing it to them.
Sure. Yeah, we've talked a lot about how the school, I mean, and schools and municipalities and governments have really done a great job of stepping up and addressing and trying to put more devices into the hands of households. We would not be as far down the track as we are, I think, with device access and stuff, if that had not taken place. So by no means, I think, do any of us want to sort of negate that. But I do think that when it comes to talking about solving the digital divide or achieving digital equity, right, that solves distance learning. Right? It solves distance learning. It does not solve the digital divide, right? And there is a difference, and that clarification and nuance in language is something that we have to be aware of, and the semantics are important when we're communicating about this issue, right? Cherie?
Yeah, and I think, you know, in our 42 school districts, only one of them does not provide computers. And all the computers that they're providing are Chromebooks. And so what we do is we go out into that school like we do the distributions on campus, but we have to educate the families to say, yes, you have a computer, and that's great for your child to use in school. This device, though, can be accessed by anyone in the family, and we want to be able to put I kind of tell them it's like a package, right? It's a technology package. Each device serves a purpose. Your phone, your Chromebook, your computer. This is why you need it. And we allow them, you know, to have that moment to accept that. Now, it's not uncommon for us to walk away from a distribution event and someone will say, no, I already have the Chromebook, and then they go talk to their neighbor who got one of the laptops, and their neighbor shows them what they could do, and then we'll get a call and say, can we still get our computer?
Yep.
You know, it's not negating the great effort that everybody did at the beginning of COVID, but you need a device to be able to access financial, to be able to access employment opportunities and
Telehealth.
Resources for social services, and you know, the Chromebooks are extremely limited in that area.
And not have to give it back when you graduate.
Yeah, and not have to give it back.
Or during the summer.
Right. I think
Or
you can tell
BYOC.
we feel passionate about this question, obviously, and we could go on, but I also want to say that I'm so excited people are getting up and asking questions. This is, I mean, it's just going really well. Okay.
Sorry, I'm Maria Suan. I work with the Seattle Housing Authority, and my question to you is the other side of the puzzle, connectivity. And I know there was a panel on connectivity, but I was just wondering, like, what are your strategies as a refurbisher or distribution center to work on the connectivity side, and how do you partner with providers like nonprofits to do that piece?
Yeah. Michael?
I think every nonprofit refurbisher to a certain extent is kind of ISP agnostic. We'll work with anybody who wants to work with us to connect people, right? In case of human IT, we provide hotspots. You know, we get them and we provide them, and if we can get them through grant funding for free, we'll do that, you know, but if people need to sign up for a monthly, we'll tell them that, but yeah, you also get a federal subsidy for it. So there's lots of different ways to kind of go about that. It used to be, back when the industry was very young, device refurbishers were device refurbishers. Like, connectivity was like, no, that's somebody else's game. But we quickly, I think everybody got a device out there, well, is it connected to the internet? Well, if you have Wi-Fi at home, and they look at you like, and we're like, yeah, okay. So clearly, as an industry, we all started thinking, yeah, we can't just not do the connectivity piece. It's just, it's not feasible. It's like giving somebody a car without gas, right? So again, we'll work with absolutely any ISP who wants to work with us. Large, small, medium, we work with all levels and sizes. And I think what happened with the pandemic is really kind of said, well, look, if there's federal subsidies available, and now with ACP, you know, replacing EBB, we're going to have funding for the foreseeable future. So yeah, get it out there. It's part of our duty to connect people. You know, otherwise you're just throwing a computer over a fence, and that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
It's interesting how COVID has changed the attitude on behalf of the ISP providers, because in 2010, when Comcast, you know, had to do the FCC individual, I sat on a panel, and Cox, I had gone to ATT, I'd gone to, you know, some of the mobile cellular providers, and Cox at that time was the only one that would actually come to the events and help the families sign up, because, you know, you drop off when you require someone to sign up on their own, right? There's several opportunities in that process where people get frustrated and just stop trying. And Cox came to the table for that and really became a true partner. And it was funny too, because even if there was a reason why they couldn't become a Cox partner, they had flyers on every other ISP provider, and they were actually helping them sign up for that too, which I thought was really interesting, that it wasn't just about their brand. Now, of course, I think refurbishers are more attractive to the ISP because they know we're that first contact with the client.
Yeah.
And again, you know, we'll work with anybody. Our goal is, can we get the family connected? And whatever avenue we have to go down to get them connected, that's all that matters to most of us that are in this business.
Yeah. Jeff, any thoughts?
Yeah, for us, it's definitely just part of the education piece. There's 3 options in Milwaukee that are under $20, including hotspots, Spectrum, AT&T, and there might be more soon. But nobody knows about them, right? And so whether it's in the class or just the information we put in with the laptop, saying here's the options, here's the actual phone number to call, here's the actual link. You know, if you call Spectrum and say I want cheap internet, they're not going to tell you about that special program. But if you get people in the class and you're giving them a computer and you're teaching them how to use the computer, and you tell them here's the $15 a month option, people go sign up for it. So our biggest challenge, we're trying to figure out better ways to track that, since it's not our internet, how to track who all is signing up and everything.
Yeah. So one last comment I just want to make on that as well is there are a few refurbishers, myself included, and then I'm going to call out Casey at PCs for people who's in the back there, who are taking the power in our own hands and becoming our own little ISPs, right? And we're really focused on serving this segment of the population that is not served by hotspots or by any of the mainstream providers. And it's not that we're not still sharing that information or whatever, but there are people where $20 a month is too much. And they don't want to sign a contract, whatever, right? And so there's a number of us that are also investigating that as a potential direct solution as well. So,
super interesting. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Gonzalez. I'm a professor at UC Santa Barbara, and my research is primarily on kind of disrupted access to technology. So in the same vein to that you're kind of pointing to, this kind of need for kind of the holistic package, right, to providers. I've increasingly been thinking with some folks at Digitunity here about kind of the hotline support that you're providing, right, once you've gotten them the devices. And so I'm just curious, and I'm curious of other people in the room as well, but of the panelists, do you think those services, which my impression, having followed Human IT for a while, that's a newer service that you guys are offering, right? So I'm curious if those services are underutilized, utilized appropriately, overutilized? And then I'm also curious, what are the questions that you find you can't answer? Like when do you hit a stumbling block when it comes to that specific service, if you know, and then what do you do? But
If only I had my senior VP of programs in the back room. Hey, AJ. No, it's a great question. It is new, right? Digital navigation is essentially what we're talking about, right? And there's two kinds of digital navigation. Either you have the air traffic control model, which is I can't answer to that, but I know who's somebody who can help, right? So that's that aspect. The second aspect is what do you need? I can help you with software. I can help you with hardware. You need a complete replacement. You need to learn how to guide through the EBB ACP process. But in terms of questions and whatnot, I mean, it is. Everybody's still navigating how you're going to make this a sustainable, scalable project. That's tough. You can do neighborhood, phone calls and whatnot, but if you're trying to scale this out to a large city or a state like that, I have yet to see that. I know Washington State, I think, is rolling out some sort of large digital navigation. I think it's got a few different implementing partners, but I haven't seen what that is going to look like. But in terms of technical questions, AJ, is there anything that our folks have gotten stumped on? I'm sure there's probably some completely non sequitur questions being asked.
I think the major thing that we've seen is being remote support. Being able to get your hands on the device is really, really important. So if you're having a device issue, you kind of physically need to be somewhere to kind of touch it, to fix it, whatever that is. So having that mix of remote and in person is really, really important for what we've seen. And I'd be happy to chat through specifics that we've seen after.
Yeah. Anybody else want to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, my tech team, which, by the way, is volunteer. I have a woman who does Monday through Friday volunteer for the last 9 years. There's really no question, because I have to tell you, if she's on the phone with them and does not know the answer, she will get the number and say, give me 5 minutes. She will hang up and find the answer. I don't know where she finds these things, but then she'll come back and she'll, oh, let's do this. As far as remote help, if it's a hardware issue, our shipping and replacement system just solves that. And we're very quick. I mean, we turn it over very fast, so to mitigate frustration, but no, I mean.
And she's a volunteer, 9 to 5?
She's a volunteer. She's there all day, every day. I've got 6 of those staff that are volunteer staff, and the longest one's been with us for 15 years. And I treat them as if staff. They are part of the strategic planning process and everything else. So, yeah, we're fortunate.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Jeff, do you want to weigh in on that tech question? You're good?
I'm good.
Okay. Great. Hi.
Hi everyone, I'm Simone Misra. I'm the new global lead for affordable devices at Microsoft. And my question is more on the supply side. Given the whole supply chain issues that we are having globally and the access to devices, what are you seeing? And since I spent 22 years at Microsoft, I know many people in the org. I'm just wondering, is there anything Microsoft can do to help first on the supply side of the equation?
Who's going to get in first?
When it comes to device, I always thought it would be really nice if when somebody purchases a new computer from Microsoft that, you have the list of refurbishers in that city and the devices are taken in at that time and transferred over to the nonprofit. I think if you did that, you would get those devices turned around much quicker and more economically. So that was one. And then I always thought if a company is purchasing computers, there should be a way to connect with the nonprofit to have those devices in bulk, put back into the box of the replacement system, and shipped to whatever nonprofit is in their area.
I feel like applauding that. Yeah. Completely agree. Yeah. Great question.
And if there's anyone from Amazon, I get computers from Amazon, but I had this idea, you get those boxes, everybody has Amazon boxes, right? And what a great way to reuse them if every box purchase you had a label where you could donate that type of good, whether it be clothing or electronics or anything, and have it go back out to a local nonprofit in that area. See, I'm on that. I will pitch that till this.
Yeah.
I would like to see, it can be a pledge, it can be something, but to at least have the enterprise size clients of Microsoft or any other OEM pledge to put some of those devices back into circulation through refurbishers, because that's not the mentality right now. There's the data issues, but I mean, any nonprofit refurbisher worth its salt is either NAID certified or R2 or already has those measures in place. We don't get a fraction of the market that the for-profit refurbishers do, and that blows my mind because we have an impact. Like, we go out, those devices go back out, we give them sustainability, longevity, and they go to a client population that needs it. So, I would love to have more education, more talks, maybe at the Chamber of Commerce level, National Chamber of Commerce level, to really kind of say, yeah, we're going to do this. If you make a pledge to recycle your plastics, so why wouldn't you make a pledge to reuse your IT? I mean, that's just a no-brainer in my mind.
Yeah, I think also, sorry, Jeff. I think also representing as an arm-in-arm partner in the conversations that we're not usually a party to, right? So, groups of Fortune 100 company CEO roundtables that are meeting and discussing how organizations like yours overall are, wanting to come together to meet those. Please invite us to just present on the work that is being done, or get to know the work well enough that you can represent us in those conversations and help, get more organizations like Amazon coming to the table and sitting down and saying, like, yeah, actually, this is a really sustainable, quite elegant solution to address a major pressing problem. Jeff?
Well, I was just going to ask if Microsoft sends their used corporate devices to a nonprofit refurbisher.
Yes, massive, all across the board, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yes, these are all strategic ideas that I would love to talk further and offline about how we can make that happen.
I think we'd all be very excited about that. Thank you for asking a question. Hi.
Hi, I'm James Walker. I'm CEO of Informative Technologies. I'm also here representing Charlotte's Center for Digital Equity, which is the new name for the Charlotte Digital Inclusion Alliance. We have a massive opportunity in our county with $200 million on the table from ARPA and a $250 million racial equity and digital equity pledge from our mayor to really make our city and our metro area a model. But that requires scale. I'm curious about, and it's good to see you again, Michael, Phil and North Carolinian. I'm curious about, on the tech side, what do you do for supply chain management? What do you do for managing tickets? Because once we start to really say, which the mayor is going to do on the 7th of March, there's a city center for digital equity people. There are going to be computers for everybody. This is what mayors do, right? It's election year for Congress and everybody else, right? If you have a shortage in one part of the supply chain, that's going to hold things up, and that's going to make people feel frustrated. Do you guys talk in the nonprofit recycling world about what you have in stock? And also ticketing. You said you provide digital navigation. My particular role is integrating digital navigation across the library, universities, and all of the do-gooders so that we're ready to have a unified ticketing system. What do you use for your ticketing stack too? So again, the supply chain, how do you manage that? How do you know what you have in inventory, what you're going to run too low on to be able to commit? And do you talk? And 2, ticketing. What do you do right now to maintain tickets? And what kind of software solutions are you using for that? Thank you.
Jeff, do you want to start?
Yeah, the first part, we definitely know what we have in inventory, and I think the challenge right now is we definitely all talk to each other, but if we're all short on devices right now, then I don't know how far that's been going, so.
It's, we refurbish, but we also are a reseller, right? We have relationships with some of the OEMs, so we can get access to new devices in any configuration. Going back to SIPA compliance, I know it has to be that way, but yeah, we can do that. So, the scale is not necessarily so much the issue, but I think you touched on a very good point, which is you're going to roll this out day one, right? Is it going to be rolled out at scale right away, or is it going to be phased up? Because if you're doing it at scale right off the bat, yeah, you better have all your systems lined up, because you're going to get crushed by just demand. Within a week, within a day, people are like, this is not working, or I don't know what to do, or my connectivity is not working. Like, it needs to be a holistic approach that has been beta tested multiple times before it's rolled out, especially Charlotte. I mean, that's not a small city.
Yeah, anyway, try it out and
yeah, pilot project it, scale it, yeah. We have a ticketing system that we can scale up as much as needed on a tech support side, but yeah, I forget who brought it up. I think AJ mentioned earlier that like that's great for virtual, but eventually you need to have a physical presence. So, you know, make sure that's staffed properly and all that. It's a lot of moving parts.
Well,
good luck.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, we're also sourcing devices from other non-profit refurbishers. It's just anywhere we need to get them to meet the demand that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that balance of always having systems. C2K is fortunate in the sense that we started COVID with about 22,000 devices in stock already, so it kind of allowed us to continue to pull in as we were going and refurbishing. But City of San Diego, our mayor, created the SD Access for All, and we are the official device partner for that. And one of the things that we try to educate the staff as they're rolling this out is you cannot, in any city, under any circumstances, I don't care how many ducks you get lined up in a row, will you ever be able to do a citywide rollout and have it successful right away. I think it always needs to be okay, we're going to do it by section, because it only takes one person to get frustrated, and the word of mouth around that population, it's like wildfire. And as soon as you get a bad reputation on that, then you're spending most of your time trying to convince individuals that it's a good program. But it definitely needs to be on a one-on-one. But we buy parts from all over, and we buy a large quantity of parts so that we continuously have them in stock. And we've reached out to other nonprofits. They've come to me and said, I need more computers, and we have a surplus of a particular kind. We'll ship it to them, and they have done that in return. And I think that's also really important, is a lot of the nonprofits, because we're on the same listserv and we're communicating regularly, we try very hard to support each other and not leave them hanging, because it reflects on the entire industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think too, we're making sure that you're working with an organization that understands deployment, right, and has a really effective deployment solution. We revitalized our deployment solution when the pandemic hit into a lottery system, and within the first 24 hours in Houston, we had 70,000 households registered. To her comment about having things in place, we thought we were going to hand out 400 computers, y'all. We're like, yeah, it's fine. The only thing we did for marketing was I put it out on my personal Facebook page, and that was it. And 70,000 people 24 hours later, and we were freaking out just a little bit. But from a deployment perspective, we got those 400 out like within a couple of days. But you need to make sure that that's another piece that you're thinking about. Yes, ticketing, yes, inventory, but also deployment itself, when you're going to have demand from such a wide geography, needs to have a logistical plan in place as well. Hi.
I'm Carissa Taston with Digitunity, and I am so happy to be working with these folks and many like them, and seeing that you're having the moment in the sun that you so well deserve. You're such an engine for digital inclusion. I just hope everyone here spreads the word about the incredible work they do. On that note, however, having come from the public library world, I would hear from folks, and what would you tell someone who said, a refurbished computer is a second-class computer? Sell me on that. Sell me on that. The opposite of that.
Yeah. That's a lie. A damn dirty lie. Now, I remember hearing a stat once, and it was a pretty interesting one. The failure rate for refurb computers is lower than brand new in box, because brand new in box is never touched by a human. And refurbished computers are touched many times throughout the refurbishing process by humans. Packaged, tested, quality assurance. So, there's that aspect of it. And there's still, nothing against Chromebooks. I love Chromebooks. They are a means to an end, right? We know what they all are. But there's a reason it's a $200, $300 computer, right? I mean, you're saving on the chip. The chip's probably the most expensive component of the screen. A refurb computer that's maybe a 5th or 6th gen i5 or i7 is still got loads more horsepower than a brand new Chromebook. The computer I use on a day-to-day basis is a refurbished computer. If you're doing refurbishing the right way, which all of us are, you're getting enterprise-grade machines. You're not getting consumer. I don't think I know of any nonprofit.
We only do business.
We only do business class, exactly. Which means you're getting something that is meant to be touched, meant to be upgraded if needed, and is sturdier than some shiny plastic thing you get at Best Buy. Nothing against Best Buy if you're in the room. Love you guys. But it's just a no-brainer. And in terms of the environmental footprint, it's huge as part of circular economy. You're also developing a workforce that knows how to refurbish, which again is a pathway to a lot. I could go all day long.
Yep, you
But I
did
don't
really
have
well.
to.
Yeah.
So, right when COVID hit, State of California had a technology advisory Zoom, and a representative for the state of California got up and announced that they had gotten 10,000 brand new computers that they were distributing out, and made the mistake of making the statement that refurbished computers were useless. And
Yes.
within not even completing that sentence, I blew up the chat, because let's face it, that's just not true. And started calling afterwards. I mean, I immediately started calling and saying, you are doing a disservice, because yes, 10,000 Chromebooks are great, but 200,000 refurbished systems is even better. And it's hard to kind of convince people that a refurbished computer is good. And even we take individual computers, not just corporations and districts, school districts. We do individual, because there are some people that get computers in San Diego where, I would have loved to, I know that computer costs $5,000, right? And so it just depends on setting the standard as a refurbisher. We are constantly increasing our benchmark of what is good and what isn't. And then we're also having a very direct dialogue with the recipient. What are you using this computer for? Is it going to be used by a 6-year-old in your household, or is it going to be used by a college student? There is a different level of device depending. And so we try to customize that relationship and that device to that individual based on what they're truly going to use it for.
Great. All right, we've got about 3 minutes left and 2 questions, so.
So I'll be really quick.
No,
I
you're
just
good.
didn't want to be the crazy lady about SIPA, so I wanted to stand up here and say hi. I'm Sarah Procaccini, Aspen Institute, DC. I love this conversation, and what I've been thinking about and what's been challenging to me coming in to the city at this time is that we have a device deployment, brand new devices, city-owned per the federal requirement that I'm looking to get out the door. There are no operating models. There are no models to help me, or there are, but hard to find folks with that experience. We've got a refurbishing community that now I'm learning is sort of a different model, adds different value for my families around, a device from the city enabling a certain thing and a refurbished computer helping with other things. And, and I could go on, and I just want to ask y'all, however you can help us as a city, all the money that's coming from the feds are requiring that those assets be city-owned. And I want to find a way to build a program. I just got a call today from a healthcare agency. They're going to throw, 4,000 tablets into the community for telehealth. And I've got 12,000 laptops going out. And, I'm just getting a bit overwhelmed, as you can all see. And so all I want to ask is, how can we as a community through NDIA have some conversations to help us think about what works for these kinds of funds that meet these requirements, and how do they meet and not meet resident need, and how do we as big municipalities start to help coordinate all this, because it's incredibly overwhelming. Not to even start to touch on that tech support model, which I have this vision in my mind that we have these neighborhood tech hubs, and it doesn't matter where you get your device, you can come in and get some help and hang out, and your kids can play with technology. And we need you guys for that. We need everybody. And so, anyway, now I am the crazy lady, but at least not for the SIPA compliance.
No,
So-
you're not the crazy lady. Yeah.
No crazy.
I think it's a good. Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I'm sure that fellow panelists here, we've heard from many people that feel what you're feeling right now, and we are the answer. Yay! You're welcome. Right, and I think honestly it is, right? It's sitting down with one of the refurbishers that have been doing this work, if it's the 4 of us or if it's the other 82 organizations across the United States that do work like this. I'll raise my hand for you since we're in DC, right? you know, and we have solved these things, right? We do know what the path forward is, and we can customize it towards what, you know, I don't know, restrictions or qualifications you need it to be restricted to. But if it's okay with you guys, since we're kind of at time, I want to make sure that you get a chance to ask the question.
Thanks. I just had a question about like support, like tech support, and like being able to continue that. So I'm Jessica from MetroEast. We've been doing a program with Multnomah County Library and Free Geek for the past couple of years called Welcome to Computers, where we bring in refurbished computers and train folks over a course of 6 weeks. But what we always find is, based on the model of the computer, when we get it, the operating system can be different. And a lot of times the communities that we work with are immigrant refugee communities, so they kind of rely a lot on each other to teach each other. And it gets really difficult when one cycle gets, you know, a Linux computer and then the other cycle gets Chromebooks. And so how do we, like, I guess, solutions for bridging
the OS gap?
Yeah.
The great OS gap of 2022. I think all of us at one point kind of make a determination. Are we going to do Windows? Are we going to do Linux? Are we going to do something else? And I think that's an educational question more than anything else. I think you have to teach folks who are coming through our programs to be OS agnostic. You just have to understand that no matter what you're using, I mean, any kid out there will, an 8-year-old will be like, can use an Apple, Android, effortlessly go to Chromium, and then go hop in Windows. How does that kid do that, right? If it's a skill, then you can teach it. And it is. So, you know, you have to be a little bit OS agnostic. I have found in my experience, typically, you know, there's a lot of demand for Windows because Windows still runs a lot of legacy programs. A lot of schools and systems still are running Windows, and that's fine. You teach to your target population. But I think if you step back, it's an educational issue, and you just try to teach the basic structures of OS, regardless who manufactures it. They're not so disparate as they seem. They really aren't. And I find people, you know, once you kind of get them into the mindset of, again, just a tool. This tool might have a little bit different tweak. Just figure that out, and you can jump from one to the other.
Yeah, we're definitely training everyone on the same software, even, you know, so it's easier for us to give them a laptop and train them on that than to try to train them on even Windows XP versus Windows 10, right? We're telling everyone, here's what the new features are, here's how things are working now. Even if you might have had a computer a number of years ago and you're used to how it used to work, then you just refresh them, like, this is how we're doing things, but we're not sending them out different OSs, because that is a huge headache.
Yeah, we do the whatever operating system is what we're allowed to do as refurbishers now. We have a lifetime replacement process. So for us, anytime a system comes in with an older operating system, my tech support staff just automatically upgrades the computer. We just do it by nature. And then we sit down and show them, okay, this is the tweaks between what you had and what you have now. So we really haven't had anybody have any challenges transitioning one to the other, because we've just built it into our tech support.
Fair enough. Okay, any final questions, comments? We're all on LinkedIn. Any other final questions or comments before we let everybody go? I think that's it for us. Thank you for joining. Congratulations on picking the best session again. And,
good job.
Likewise.
Just a basic question.
Sure.
People